Hey, everybody, welcome to our weekly webinar. And just kind of keep something in mind. Our webinar is to try to figure out what are the best places to practice and the dominant trends that are affecting what's going on regarding place. So this week, we're going to be talking about some brand new factors that have come in, data that has come in about how people are living, and it specifically is on the issue of age. There's some brand new stuff that has kind of come out, and I think it's pretty interesting. So I'm going to talk to you about that today. I want to welcome Mike Green. Say hi, Mike.
Hi.
Isn't he cute? I mean,
Oh man.
in a very manly kind of way. He's
Yeah,
looking.
for sure.
So let me go ahead and jump into this. I'm going to open my PowerPoint presentation, and we'll start this thing right off. Now, here's the deal. It isn't just that people are living longer. It's the attitude regarding where to go to take advantage of the facts about how people are living. So these are trends in aging and site selection. The birth rate is in decline. Now, I've talked about this before. It just basically means to keep a stable age distribution, you need to have 2.1 children per woman. Now, that obviously isn't happening in most places. Now, obviously, some places it is, like Utah and Texas, are doing reasonably well as far as their birth rate. But what's really happening is life expectancy is what's changing. Now, it isn't as though people are living longer. They kind of are. But what we're really saying is if you want to know who to attract for your practice, you don't take into account just the number of children that are being born. You also have to say, how many doctors are there relative to the population? And what population should I be seeking? And those who are older are really turning out to be kind of the sweet spot. So let me explain that a little differently. Deaths are basically outpacing births in the United States. It means people are living longer. Births are not coming as often. The elderly are becoming the hot market for people to consider. A few reasons for that. They have the money, they have the credit, they have the demands. In short, the greater need in healthcare is going toward older people. It doesn't mean that's always going to be the case, but it means nationally, that's a key factor to figure out where should you put a practice in order to really survive. The other thing to keep in mind that when you have older people, doctors are really the solutions to the things that they want. So therefore, the demand for doctors, and that's for any healthcare practice, including veterinarians, by the way, are going to be greater when the population is older and stable. Again, they've got the money, they've got the credit, and they've got the demand. So there are 5 things I want to talk to you about specifically. And number 1 is trends in aging value. Now, here's something you have to keep in mind as demographers track how people are behaving. One of the things they look at is people have a fixed income mentality as they grow older. They recognize the fact that they're not likely to have a job that all of a sudden will start paying a lot more than it did before. And in fact, they're beginning to live in a way that it will prolong their assets. Now, one example of that is going to be in the fixed income, like Social Security and their retirement plans and other investments. So while people want to have a little positive income, they don't want to risk it. So the amount of gain that they're placing is less. And therefore, they're being much more careful with how much they're spending on housing. As it happens, as people get into their 50s and their children move away from home and the demands for their work becomes less, they think housing is the place we have to save. So people are being more sensitive about how much they're investing on where they live. The other thing they want to do, and this is a little bit different from what it used to be, older people are still thinking, I don't want to give up all my income. I still want to have some kind of employment. So therefore, people are not wanting to go someplace that's super far away from everybody else. they still want to be able to keep a positive cash flow. And having any kind of income certainly helps that to happen. So that becomes an important issue regarding where older people are thinking about living. The other thing is they have to have a recreation that is more senior friendly. So look, I'm not trying to say people give up on their lives, but they're not as likely to go skiing or rock climbing. Their recreational activities are going to tend to be more appropriate for their age. Now, if you say, well, what recreational things would those be? Think in terms of what a 65-year-old might want to do. So they might want to sightsee, they might want to visit places, but they're not going to put their health at risk. And so for that reason, they're going to be a little lower impact. So the places to consider looking to put a practice to take advantage of the new aging population is in a place where they can afford to have a positive recreational outlook. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. As I sometimes say, this is not your grandma's locations. Used to be that grandma would consider going out to a rocker, some place that would be low impact and pretty easy to hang out, which is fine, except people don't want to be as sedentary as they used to be. So often they're looking for places that have attractions, but they aren't just sitting around kinds of attractions. So here's something that some wise gerontologists are saying when it comes to figuring out where the elderly are settling. They are not going to large, densely urban areas. They don't want to move to a place that is going to give them more stress. And urban areas are definitely a stressor. They are not going to rural areas. Now, you may assume, well, they want to go back to the farm. They don't. They want to go someplace that it is easy to live, and suburbs are by far the easier places for that. One of the things they're also noting, the new elderly people are not looking at coastal communities. There used to be the thought that, well, I want to go out there to the ocean or out to the mountains, and that is not so true anymore. They actually are looking for places that are easy to access and are easily accessible by other people, like their grandchildren and their children, who would like to come out and visit them. So therefore, if we think about Newport Beach or any of the coastal communities in South Carolina, it's not as likely that they're going to do that. They kind of want to go to a place that it's not so stressful in keeping the money that they've earned. And so therefore, yeah, access to oceans are fine, but it's those other places that are easier to get along. That's kind of what they really want. The other thing is, data is showing that people do not want to go where it's cold. And that is almost anywhere that it's cold. This accounts for a lot of people just kind of wanting to avoid mountain locations. And so those which are in warmer climates are going to be more desirable for them. And in fact, there's a movement away from those people who have timeshare condominiums in inaccessible or cold weather locations. They're just not doing that. Now, let me go on. Number two, a trend for aging is the importance of mobility. And you have to remember there's a problem with people who are older wanting to drive. They don't like to drive, particularly not at night. They don't like to drive long distances, and they don't like dense traffic. So that has kind of influenced what we're discussing when it comes to older people and mobility. Proximity is therefore the key word. They want to be close to healthcare. Now, there's a new trend that we're kind of noting in which healthcare facilities, hospitals, hospices, healthcare offices are kind of what they're looking for, and they want to find places that have a relationship with each other. So hospitals and healthcare practices that are in the same network are becoming much more desirable than they ever were. Yes, they may need to go to a major hospital at some time, but that's not a big draw for the elderly. Having access to moderate healthcare demands is kind of what they're looking for. Another thing they want is shopping. And for a while, there was a thing about covered parking and shopping malls that were in a big shopping area. That's not as desirable for them. What they're looking for are places that have good weather and accessible shopping, but they don't necessarily have to go to the high-end places. Now, Macy's has announced, which is a reasonably high-end big box retailer, they've just announced they're closing hundreds of locations and laying off literally thousands of corporate people. So what they're looking for are the medium range, and frankly, Target stores and other big box stores of similar brands, those are becoming more popular. And therefore, people are saying, I would like to go to a place that I can go shopping without having to spend a lot or drive a far distance to get there. There's also another trend that we're tracking that I think is pretty interesting, and that is being close to a communications hub. Now, everybody knows about the internet, and that's great, but 5G, those places that have very high speed access, are becoming more popular among elderly people. Now, here's what that means. Elderly people are looking for places that they can walk into their room, turn on their computer, and chat. They can chat with their kids, their grandkids, each other, their parents, and their friends. They want to have that much higher end communications access. Now, it's not everywhere. There are lots of places that I've discovered in the Western United States and some in the East Coast that are really saying, look, all you have to do is just start talking, and it's as though your friends and family are right in the room with you, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. You don't have to have a dedicated telephone line anymore. You don't even have to have a place that is going to have movie theaters, because the quality of broadcast movies, television shows, are really entering the places, not just the homes, but the places where these kinds of services are desirable. Now, Mike Green happens to live in southern Utah. It has very bad communications access, at least during a lot of its places. But we're seeing a change in some of these communities in which communications hubs, Google Fiber and other things, are available, and people are saying, I want to live there as a retiree because I don't have to travel very far to get there. The proximity to transportation options, and I mean really where there's a lot of Uber and Lyft and other gig economy transportation, is becoming much more practical. I say that because there is a movement against them in some very large urban areas, but it's the suburban areas that Uber and Lyft are having their greatest impact. But it's also true that you can get a transportation option to take you shopping or to the hospital or to the doctor, and it doesn't cost very much if you're in the right area. So it's the cost-effective transportation options that are really attracting older people. And not even yet, within the next 5 years, this is going to be very important. And I'm even going to talk about some of the locations that are having that as an option. And it makes it better for your healthcare practice to be in a place where healthcare exists, shopping, communications hubs, and transportation options are available. There are regional transportation hubs. Now, you probably have all seen them. It may not be an international airport, but it will be a place that you can get from almost any place to any place else in your region of the country. And those are the regional hubs that people are liking. Now, to give you an example, Phoenix, Arizona has Sky Harbor. Yes, it does have some national access, but it's not like JFK or LAX or those very large airports. They're regional hubs. And that seems to be what a lot of older people are much more favoring. So they want to have access to the regional hubs, but they don't want to be forced into them. So proximity is a thing to consider, and proximity to your office is going to count. Now, the other trend in aging that people have been a little surprised by, and that's safety and security. In other words, is a fear that older people have. It's not unreasonable that if you go to a very big city, and Baltimore, as an example, traditionally had a very big area, and so did many of the Midwest and Eastern cities. They had a big place to go. Well, they became so crime-ridden, and people are afraid, naturally afraid, of those locations that you don't have to pay fines or have to make bail. Older people are now in the mood to live in places that have no crime, not just low crime, but none. And they're voting in people who want to make their communities, especially their planned communities, very, very safe. Makes good sense. They also want to go to those places that have a sense of community. Now, this is a little bit of a change from the Del Webb community, which is a pretty expensive option in which to live. But people are saying, I want to go to a place that has a sense of neighborhood. I want to go to a place that is local, regardless of its size. They want security, but also access to other people who are like them. I want to move someplace that is local. Again, I'll talk about some of these in just a second. There is also something which may sound downright bigoted. And I don't know, maybe in a way it is. They want to live in a place of cultural homogeneity. In essence, they want to live where there's a lot of people like them. They want to have the people speak their language, be of their ethnicity, and have a religious outlet for them. I mean, they want to be able to go to church and be a part of a place that has potlucks and community activities and even a Sunday school. They are looking at religion as being a genuine part of their culture and of their community. So what older people are doing, and I'm saying specifically those who are in their late 50s and older, they want to go to a place that is like where I am. Now, I'm going to bring this up, and I don't be offended, please, but the Jewish community has done a very good job of leading the way in this. You go to a place where you could walk to the synagogue on Saturday. You can be a part of a senior outreach. You can go to a place that has a Wednesday or a Friday worship service or a choir or that kind of thing. And it is part cultural, but it's also part community involvement. So what older people are shopping isn't to go someplace that is a tiny, very expensive place to go. They want to go to a place where people are like them and they can afford to go. So they're shopping for places that feel like home to them. If you are identifying with a particular religion, culture, ethnic group, your practice is going to be in a much better position. So if you look at Glendale with the Armenian population, or you look at the myriad Catholic communities, or Protestant Seventh-day Adventists, those people in those communities are feeling more secure and their lives have a higher quality of life. But you don't have to pay out of pocket for that. There is also kind of a movement toward community involvement. In essence, they want to be involved in voting. They want to do bowling. They want to do things that feel like what they used to do or their parents used to do when it came to being a part of a neighborhood. That's what they're looking for. It doesn't have to be very big. They don't want to drive very far. They want to, if at all possible, to walk to it. Now remember that walking community is a big imperative for people who are over 50 and into their 60s. Now, the fourth trend in aging I want to talk about is surprising some people, and it's employment and recreation. Yeah, older people who are now 65 don't necessarily feel that old, and they want to have some place that they can work or contribute or be a part of something. If you know that you are on a fixed income, if you have the opportunity to get some kind of job, even a part-time job, at a school, at a church, at a community center, at some kind of a place where you feel a part of something, and you can bring in a little money, doesn't have to be much, just to supplement your retirement, people are flocking to those places. The quality recreation is also something that they want, but it has to be age appropriate. Now, I mentioned bowling, and it's been almost a joke because people go, bowling? Who bowls anymore? Well, if there is an inexpensive way to do golf, people like it, but they don't want to play 18 holes. They'll do a pit and putt, or they'll do 9 holes, or they'll do any number of walking activities or swimming activities. These are things that are extending the quality of life. They don't feel that they're that old that they can't participate in things, But what older people are saying, and these are the people with money and all that credit I talked to you about, there's something that they want that's a little bit more. They're not in the mood to have more kids, but they are in the mood to have access to people with kids and their own community. I also just want to make sure I've been clear about this. An enhanced internet capability is something that people are loving a lot. Now, we may assume, no, wait a minute, I thought that's just for young people. No. The older people are learning and have grown up with the idea of the internet. They may not want a low baud modem, but they do want to have something where they can get in and shop, be entertained, and all of this is coming through the internet. So those communities and places that have that good internet capability are being very popular. There's also the idea of shopping and education options. Now, this surprises a lot of people that there are a lot of older people who want to go back to school, change their careers. And even in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, they're looking at enhancing their lives. Remember, people are not as old as you chronologically think. Now, back at the ranch when I was a young man, the median death age was about 58. Well, now people are living easily into their 70s and 80s. But as I'll mention in a minute, it's not just that they're living longer, they're healthier longer. So therefore, their opportunities to do stuff is greater. Now, I'm just getting to the end here. Yes, there is an increased life expectancy, but they're also looking for an enhanced quality of life. They want to stay alive longer. They want to be healthier. And in fact, as gerontologists are saying, people are living healthier until they die. And that seems to be the new paradigm. In-home care and gradual assisted living is popular. Now, there are people who can come and deliver meals to your door, cost a little something. They can do their shopping, but you have to have proximity to a store and restaurants that will do it. They also are rather enjoying enlarged in-community healthcare. So if you have a way to get to care, people are really enjoying that. Now, here are some priority locations. We want to go to places that are affordable and ownable. In other words, people do want to own something, even if it's a 2-bedroom home or a condominium that has a feel of being owning something. You might even be able to be a part of a gardening effort. They're liking warmer weather, and therefore the South has been the primary place that people are going. They're moving away from the Northeast. And I'm not just saying New England, I'm saying Wisconsin and the upper Midwest. They're kind of going, I don't want to live in Chicago anymore. I don't want to go there. But there are some ways that Midwest communities are overcoming the cold and mitigating them by doing enclosed shopping and recreation. And that has been something that Minneapolis-St. Paul has been a leader in. There are a lot of people that are snowbirds, and so in other words, they'll move when the weather gets cold, but they often want a permanent nest. So what these older people with good credit are doing is they're looking for 2 locations to live in, but a place that someone will take care of their home while they're away. So where are the places that we're looking? Well, we're looking at Florida overall, and it used to be that you'd look at one of the coasts like Tampa, maybe Miami, but the entire state of Florida is now doing much better all over, and that includes Tallahassee. And if you look at the north, south, east, and west of the state, Florida's got a lot going on, but so does Texas. Now, Texas, the Houston area was always considered kind of youngish and not a place to go, but all over Texas, we're seeing this as a trend. On the east, west, and south, Corpus Christi, for example, has done very well. But there's some other states that are doing that high-tech thing that I told you about and giving work to seniors and things. Utah, Nevada, Colorado, Arizona, and Georgia are all doing remarkably well in that, and they're pretty upscale communities. Now, I can talk to you about the options on these. I don't want to just list 25 cities in each of these states, but I will say if you're interested in one of these, let me do a telephone consult with you and I can tell you where to go specifically. As an example, Utah has got southern Utah doing very well. Yeah, Cedar City may be a little cold for some, but certainly Hurricane is developing itself well, which a lot of people are surprised by, in St. George. And in fact, the entire region has done well. Nevada has got several options. So does Colorado, Arizona, as I mentioned, and Georgia. Now, Alabama, North and South Carolina, Tennessee, and several mid-American states, particularly like Oklahoma, and Iowa, are surprising people. Now, yes, there are cold weather spots that people don't want to be in. But don't forget, these are very affordable places to go. There's work for older people, and the tax laws are desirable for those who are living on a fixed income. These are places you really have to consider. Now, technology will change our current priorities of where to live. That is an absolute fact. The lifestyle centers, which I mentioned, are actually not exclusive for older people, but they are doing everything they can to make it welcoming to have Uber and Lyft and work and recreation for seniors. That's what I'm saying when people say, well, where would I go? I can tell you where to look. This year's older adult will be different from those 20 years ago. I don't know how long the life expectancy will continue to rise, but I can tell you, older people don't think of themselves as gray-haired anymore. In fact, rather than call it the graying of America, we should call it the tinting of America. So if you want to get an idea of where to go that might work for you in a place that is interesting to you, please consider a telephone consultation. Mike and I do a lot of research to help figure out where to go. If you are in the mood to have Mike meet you someplace and look at actual locations and kick the tires on sites and the communities, Mike can go on the road, and we're offering some discounts in order to do that. So please consider using our services to find the perfect place to put a practice to give you a longevity in practice. Mike, anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. Other than when you talk about aging, I just really think of marketing opportunity. I just think that, there's so much opportunity for the practices that will allow their practice to mature and age with the population around them. And it's the one that stay stuck 20 years ago, that have not evolved as a practice, that, man, they miss out on a lot of opportunities. And the new practices that come in that are wiser, right, really scoop up that extra. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity. But again, it would be wise for you to get that telephone consultation, or to have me fly out and visit that site with you, so that we can look at what the current state of the population is, but more importantly, where they're going to be at 10 years from now and where you're going to be at 10 years from now.
Then let me just add on this, Mike. The reason I want you to go out, or I want you to have Mike there, is because he can actually go to the sites with you, and you can work with a local realtor or a developer. And Mike is extremely good as being the person who fits in between those, finding locations that are going to have potential to build not just one, but several offices within the same general region that will serve the same kind of population, your niche, in other words. So that's what I'd really like to have you consider for our services. Anyway, everybody, Mike, thank you again for your wisdom and for your just charm. It's just kind of remarkable.
Well, it's this rural lifestyle that I live here in.
Is that what that is?
It is.
Yeah, whatever. Mike is only 23 years old, by the way, in case you're wondering.
23.
I'm kidding. It's living outside that much. He's just healthy as heck. All right, everybody. Thanks again. We'll talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.